Hello and welcome back to your new favorite podcast from your always favorite association, right? Service Hero Toolbox brought to you by Sofesa. I know we're a little late this month, guys, a couple of weeks behind. It's for good reason. It is summertime. You guys know how that happens in our industry. I'm dropping my pen already. But luckily, we actually have somebody on the show today that could help us with some of the workload that we often endure. Before I introduce her, though, I do want to take this opportunity for one little housekeeping item, an announcement from the ambassador, or from the ambassador crew at Sofesa. We need more ambassadors for the regional meeting and the national conference. So if you have any interest whatsoever in shouting Sofesa's name from the rooftops and helping us get members and attendees to these meetings and conferences, please do us a favor, sign up on the website or reach out to Olivia and she will help you or help direct you to the proper application to do so. So thank you so much. And also you can reach out to me or Nick. I'm sure we'll be able to help you with that as well. If that's easier, whatever's easiest for you, we'll make it happen.
We need your help. We need your help is what we're saying.
We need your help. Exactly. So please don't be shy. Come forth and help us grow. But enough of that. Nick, dude, I know we just talked. I just saw you a couple hours ago, but I get to see you again on this platform in this show. So happy to be here. I'm going to let you take it from here and let you introduce our awesome guest today.
Yeah, man. Grateful to invite a local of sorts up in Rock Hill, right there, not far from our Sofesa global headquarters. Miss Sarah Davis. She is a licensed professional counselor. I wanted to make sure I got that right. Sometimes all these acronyms we got flying around our business, it's just want to make sure I don't get it wrong, especially in food service. Man, I'll tell you what, our associations is enough to figure out on its own. But Sarah Davis is the owner of Bloom Yoga and Counseling up there in Rock Hill. She's going to be a guest speaker for us, speaking on some different disciplines that she knows well and she's well versed in at our up and coming YPC symposium. So Sarah, I just want to bounce past it to you and let you kind of dig into the value adds that you're going to be able to bring to those attendees, and me and Josh will just try to learn and grow with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So the two sessions that I'll be speaking on, one is how to avoid burnout, and I am very enthusiastic about speaking on this, mostly because usually when people come in to see me, they are already at the point of burnout. So as mentioned before, I'm a licensed mental health therapist. I'm a licensed counselor. And so typically when people come into therapy, they are well into burnout. And so it is way easier to notice the early signs and avoid burnout than it is to recover from it. And so I'm really looking forward to speaking on what I teach my clients, but what I speak on a regular basis for just like general stress reduction, avoiding burnout, but in general, how to improve, quality of life. That's, we're at our job most of the day. And so reducing stress and avoiding burnout in that area improves every area of our life. So with my practice, I do a lot of mindfulness-based stress reduction. I specialize so I'm also a yoga teacher. So I do a lot of breath work, a lot of guided meditations. But I also work with people on adjusting their beliefs around a situation, because so often it's not the thing that happens. It's what we believe to be true about the thing that happens, right? It's our thoughts and our beliefs around that situation. And so I really take a holistic approach, and I'm excited to bring that to the conference and share how people can take their 9 to 5 or whatever their hours are at work and really make it a space that they are not experiencing stress, or if they are, how they can reduce those effects and bounce back more quickly. The other session I'll be speaking on is how to find your voice in the company. And so that's a really fun topic as well. A lot of times when people think of that topic, they think of things like conflict management and, how to assert yourself without being aggressive. And yes, we'll definitely cover those things. But what I find to be crucial with finding your voice in a company is it's your presence, right? It's have you done the inner work to begin with to walk into a conversation with confidence? And confidence is being able to regulate your own nervous system. So I'm bringing a unique approach to these topics. It's a mental health background, as well as a yoga teacher, mindfulness based, holistic, integrative approach. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh my goodness. I'm excited to talk to you.
No kidding. I was about to say, man, I might have to send you a Venmo when we get done.
Oh, cool. So I want to jump into all that. I'm really curious, but could you give us just like a high level, how you got to where you are today, kind of thing, so we can kind of get to know Sarah Davis just a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So I have been in the mental health field now for, let me see, since 2011 or 12. And I started out as, when I lived in Kentucky, it was a role called a therapeutic support worker. So I worked with very high risk families. And by high risk, I mean very high levels of trauma. This was a very, acute stress, low income populations. And so I was essentially like, the Big Brother, Big Sister Foundation, or
Yeah.
I was essentially like a big sister, like a therapeutic support worker for these kids that were also in therapy. So I started out more in the child and adolescent world. I went to grad school at Western Kentucky University, became a licensed therapist, and just throughout the last 5 years, I've transitioned more to working with adults. And taking this more mindfulness based approach, because in my work I have noticed that we can adjust our cognitions in the way we think about situations, and that does help to a point. But what I saw again and again is that my clients would hit this plateau, right? They learn these cognitive skills to think differently about a situation, but it's like their body wasn't coming along for the ride. And so between the two, between what you think and what you feel, I promise you, what you feel wins every time. Every time. And so I began to think, man, like, how can I get people to bring their body and their sensations, their emotions into the therapy room? And so I started doing more what they call like a body-centered approach to therapy. So instead of just focusing on thoughts and beliefs and our cognitions, I really started focusing on okay, well, let's pause and let's take a few grounding breaths. Like, let's come back into our body. And what are you feeling? Where do you feel that in your body? Oh, you feel up here. And then I would guide them to really explore what they were feeling, to be able to attend to that emotion. And it was fascinating to me to see how quickly clients began to make progress, and they were able to become a more connected human being, mind, body, spirit. They were able to, develop resiliency. They were able to have more confidence. And it's not just because they were thinking differently, it's because they were able to handle their emotions. Because how often do we feel an uncomfortable emotion and boom, we're distracting, we're avoiding, we're checking out, right? And truly, a lot of those things lead to burnout, because it's the stress doesn't just dissipate, it is growing behind the surface. And so teaching people that they can, they have everything they need within them to sit with an uncomfortable emotion or sensation, and really to empower them to get to know themselves better and to not run from difficult emotions, but to lean into it. That's one of my big things is, if a client feels resistant around something, that's good stuff right there. Like, okay, well, let's lean into that. So often we want to run from that. And when we lean into the things that we're resistant about, or the things that are uncomfortable, the things that we might typically want to avoid, I mean, there is such power in the ability to lean into discomfort.
Wow. You seem really passionate about this. What led you to get into this type of helping people?
Yeah, that's a great question, because, there are times where this is really, I'm a trauma therapist. And so I work with people that have been through really incredible things. And so when I first started out working with kids, like what I saw was that it wasn't just a kid issue. So often we see these kids, these little kiddos that are struggling, and And every single time it's a systemic issue, right? It's the parents, it's the grandparents, it's the generational trauma that gets passed from generation to generation. And so I really got interested in working with adults, but I tell people all the time, I'm a recovering perfectionist. And so burnout for me is not something that I am unfamiliar with at all. And so I am so intimately aware of what negative coping strategies, what it does to our, not just our mental health, but our physical health, our spiritual health, I mean, we are all connected. And so, the amount of stress that we carry around is incredible. And as human beings, our tolerance for high levels of stress is, I would say, impressive, but I don't mean it as a compliment. Like, we tolerate such high levels of stress until we hit that burnout point. And so I really got passionate about this work when I started seeing, I'm going to say how easy healing is, because it is work, right? It is work to get in and to peel back our layers. But the honor and the privilege to, like, this path led me to do my own work, truly. I mean, this path led me, I feel such a great responsibility to walk the walk. And so the healing that I have received, and the ways that I'm able to show up more present and more in alignment with who I am has been amazing. But the honor that it is that I get to sit with people and hear their story, and I get to watch them grow and become this incredible version of themselves. I can't imagine doing anything else. I truly love what I do.
Yeah, sure seems like it. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. All right, so I want to kind of dig into a little bit about what you're going to be talking about, maybe at the YPC symposium. And Nick, feel free to interrupt me or jump in whenever you feel the need. You know how this goes.
Yes, sir.
I think that, and I shared this before we hit the record button, but, maybe a good starting point is I can share at least a little bit of an experience that I've had with burnout, and maybe, we can kind of react as a group to that, and see where it takes us. And I'll be as brief as possible. I know we don't have a ton of time here, but it was January 1st, 2018, 4:03 a.m. that we went live on our new work order management platform. Right, I had been doing about 7 or 8 months worth of work to be able to migrate all of our information from one platform to another. Lost a lot of sleep. I was probably sleeping maybe 4 hours a night at best. And once we launched, because I was the one that did all that work, I didn't have somebody, a IT professional or anybody to work with me in the implementation. I did that all myself as well, in an organization that at the time had about 35 or 40 people in it. So definitely not as big as we are now, but big enough to, impact me. Anyway, I found myself as the only one able to navigate the entirety of the platform because of the complexities of it. And so even after the implementation, I was working 18 to 19 hours a day, making sure all these work orders got billed correctly and all the calls got ran and all the quotes were accurate and all the invoicing was right. And so literally, I was staring at a computer screen for 18 to 19 hours a day for probably about 4 months after that, weekends included. No breaks. Right. And it's because I had this feeling of, hey, I'm young enough, I can do it. Why not? And I put the whole thing on my back and ran with it. I don't think anybody in the industry is unfamiliar with that feeling. But to, your point, it ended up catching up with me. I was basically a zombie. My wife reminded me of that a couple of times, and void of emotion, and it felt eventually like I was taking steps backward instead of steps forward, even though that was the intent of everything I was trying to do. So I'm sure you see situations like that from time to time, Sarah. And, I'm guessing and assuming, and you can clarify this, that maybe some of that is what you might be talking about at the symposium.
Yes, absolutely. And God bless our partners and family members and friends that have the courage to say to us, hey, like, where are you and what's going on? And, you've checked out, right?
Amen
And
to
so
that.
what you're saying is you're a fellow overfunctioner, so we're kinfolk basically. But thing with to be an overfunctioner, right? To take stress and to really, like you had said, I'm young, I can handle it. Um, you know, to be an overfunctioner in that way, to be able to remember I said a little while ago, like our capacity to tolerate extreme profound levels of stress is incredible. But when I say incredible, I mean like we should stop and pause and be like, wow, like we really need to caution and be careful around that. But the thing is, being an overfunctioner is often rewarded in our society, right? Like I said, I'm a forever recovering perfectionist and workaholic. I have to really check myself. And because when I get stressed, I dig in. And if I'm not living in alignment, if I'm not practicing healthy lifestyle choices, then yeah, like I can get swept up in the stress and dig my heels in. But here's the deal. Professors have always loved me. Employers love me, right? I've been selected for all kinds of leadership positions and I've been acknowledged and awarded and all. So what was killing me was being reinforced by society. And so it's very confusing, right? When something's reinforced behaviorally, we tend to do it more and more. And so, yes, like this symposium's for young professionals, but I hope that upcoming leaders are hearing this and that they can notice and recognize that part of quality leadership is not necessarily reinforcing the workaholic, right? Hey, when was the last time you took a break? Have you had a vacation? And so, we have to be careful because we like productivity, right? As organizations and companies, we need productivity, right? We have to hit a certain number. And so just watching our people and, being each other's, just checking on one another. Hey, like, have you slept? Have you, I teach my clients, okay, we're going back to the foundational basics, right? If you're at a super high level of stress, if you're teetering on overwhelm, we're going back to the absolute basics of living. Have you drank water? Are you sleeping? Right? Have you eaten? Right? Or are you just grabbing bites on the go? And so just coming back to those foundational basics are crucial, but typically our friends and family members will tell us, hey, like you're running too hot, you're burning the candle at both ends and you will burn out. And the thing is, we tend to believe that we can handle more and more and more. And so when we burn out, it hits like that, doesn't it? I'm curious for you, when you burned out, was it like, did it seem like this sudden, drastic, painful experience?
Yeah, once I realized that that's what it was, yeah, but I think that honestly, I didn't know if it was a lack of self-awareness or what, but I didn't think I was burnt out until I felt burnt out, right?
Right.
So,
Right. And at that point, it's like to recover from burnout is way more difficult and takes a lot longer than to avoid burnout by noticing the early signs. And I love what you said about self-awareness because that's so key. When we're stressed, truly what's happening is we're in survival. Our nervous system has us geared up to be in survival mode. So, we've all heard of fight, flight, freeze, right? And there's also fawn. And if you're in high levels of stress, it sounds like you're probably more fighter. It sounds like you get busy and you dig your heels in, and you might have some more like workaholic tendencies and things like that. Whereas somebody who's more apt to freeze when they become highly stressed, they might numb out more. You might see them avoid. You might see them kind of pull back from situations or, have a hard time coming up with answers or solutions. And so at the symposium, I really want to help people because here's the deal. Burnout looks different for everybody. How it looks for you or for myself can look totally different than it might look for somebody else. And so teaching people what their unique red flags are. How can they be more self-aware? How can they notice when they're on the path to burnout? It's way easier to course correct early on, to notice those things, to support one another, to slow down and to to make their health and wellness a priority, then once you get to that burnout point, I mean, it's rough to recover from. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll tell you this too. When you were saying that avoiding it is easier than dealing with it, if your ability to even help one person at this symposium coming up avoid burnout, I mean, you talk about well worth your time and us. Thank God, thank you for being a part of this and even being open to doing this. If we're able to help one of our young professionals avoid, Josh, what you very vulnerably described, where you felt like you had to be tough and muster through it to the point your wife thought you were a zombie, then man, this is a true. I mean, I wouldn't even say food service, right? This is a greater good value add for just one human that can avoid this. And you said earlier that a lot of times it's a lie that somebody believes. And what's crazy about it is a lie is it doesn't even need to be true. Something doesn't need. Or I'm sorry, I just mixed my words there. Something doesn't need to be true for it to be believed, right? And that's what happens to a lot of people is they're believing something that's not true, and then once they grab onto that the belief of that lie, their outward actions are now so confusing to them and to others because they just don't have any truth to cling to. And sometimes I do believe it is really just as simple as some water and some sleep and just venting to someone, taking an extended vacation. That I'm sure that there's all these practical things that you'll be able to speak into, and that's really cool, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And I just want to, I feel like that quote was rooted in stoicism a little bit. The one that you had said, it's not what happens to us, it's our belief about what happens to us.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And because I feel like I've read that before. And if can you kind of unpack that a little bit just before we move to the next topic, just so people can understand? Because I think it's a really powerful statement, and it's right on the heels of what Nick was talking about. So could you expand and elaborate on that just a little?
Absolutely. So our perspective is such a powerful thing. Our perspective is like a pair of glasses that we put on, and when we go out in the world, it's how we see everything. It's how we see everybody. And so let's say I look outside and it's raining. Okay, well, the rain is pretty objective, right? It's just rain. It's moisture falling from the sky. That's what it is. And it's not the rain that might cause me to have a bad day. It's I look out the window and now I have a perspective about that. And my mind comes up with a narrative around that. So maybe I look outside and I think, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's raining again. I always feel so depressed when it rains and I'm so bummed out. And like, this is going to be such a gloomy day. I'm already feeling more tired. Well, you best believe that I just spoke some things into existence, because what I believe to be true is so powerful in creating what I call my reality. So another person can look outside and see the exact same weather and say, ooh, I love rainy days. I get to curl up on the couch and maybe I get to read a book today and just relax, right? This gives me a day of maybe taking a break and enjoying, oh, I love the sound of rain, right? So the rain is just the rain, right? It's not, but what I believe to be true about it instantly impacts how I feel, what emotions I'm holding in my body around that situation. Well, rain's one example, but I mean, if we take this to, work, okay, somebody comes over and, I'm trying to think of a common work example. Maybe they left their plate out in the break room. I don't know, right? So it's just a plate, right? It's just a dirty dish. And so what I believe to be true at that, maybe I believe that person's inconsiderate or that they don't care about anybody else. Well, how am I going to feel about that person? Well, I feel resentful, and I feel like I'm going to be watching to see if they do it again next time. And now I'm amped up and I'm feeling a bit aggressive, right? So maybe I could choose to look at that situation as, oh, they left a plate in the break room. Maybe they were in a hurry. Maybe they're feeling really stressed. Maybe I could check on them and see if they're doing okay. After all, it's just a plate. So yes, our perspective, it shapes our reality. Our reality is what is it other than what we believe to be true about what we're experiencing?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's super powerful. So I like to stop and pause and issue our audience some challenges. from time to time on this podcast. I think there's value in that. And I do want to just kind of call this out for a second, pause and ask our audience and our listeners and our viewers, to take a good hard look in the mirror and ask themselves what they believe about situations, right? What stories are you telling yourself and that are shaping your day, your week, your month, your year, your life, and maybe take a step back and just try to be honest with yourself as best you can and see if you can make a shift, because I'm willing to bet that anybody out there experiences this in some capacity on a daily basis, whether it's 20 times a day or whether it's once a day. But I think there's always improvement to be found and to be had, in awareness of this. So, audience, that's your first challenge for this podcast. I'm going to hold you to it somehow. All right, cool. Well, thank you for that. Nick, anything to add before I jump into the next topic?
No, let's keep plowing forward. This is great.
Right on. Okay, so the next topic, you said how to find your voice in specific to like at work. Is that what you're talking, or is this just an overarching thing?
I mean, I think the concepts can be used globally across any situation in life. But I do think specifically I'll be talking about in the workplace. And so how to find your voice professionally, how to find your voice, how to be assertive without being aggressive, right? I mean, that's, and this beautifully ties into avoiding burnout, because when we're burned out, try to have a productive conversation if you're at an extreme high stress.
Oh, man.
Not pretty.
Yeah.
It never. And so a big part of this session about how to find your voice really comes back to this piece on self-awareness and being grounded and using your breath. Okay, so how can I use my breath to soothe my nervous system so I'm no longer up in this heightened stress response state, but now I can feel my feet on the ground. I can feel my breath in my lungs. I've slowed down my heart rate. I know who I am and I'm confident in that person. Now I'm going to walk into this room with the presence, right? With a confidence, and I'm going to be far better able to communicate my needs and wants in a respectful, productive, and professional way because I've done this work first. So it's less about what words to use. It's less about how you speak, but it's really about like doing this inner work before you try to make your needs and wants known.
Wow. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of power in this too. It reminds me of a book I just read a couple of months ago called Crucial Conversations. Another tidbit for the audience out there. If you're looking for some tactical information, obviously you could probably reach out to Sarah, or better yet, come to our YPC symposium. But it is that book is really great. I found it to be an awesome resource, and I think it relates a lot to kind of what you're saying here, how to be assertive without being aggressive, and I got to say, I really love that you're taking a practical approach to it, because often, you do hear about all the work you've got to do up here, and kind of skipping what I believe to be the fundamentals, which is, get your breath right, stand up straight, shoulders back, and really portray, your presence in the room to set the tone for what you can think up here. So, and I'm not trying to like hijack the show or anything, but I resonate a lot with what you're saying. So, can you give some practical advice on this show without giving out everything that you're going to talk about in the symposium to how people can accomplish?
Yeah, absolutely. So, without giving away all my trade secrets, one of the things I encourage somebody to do, let's say the situation is they're preparing for a conversation and they have time to prepare, because that's very different than a conversation that they are bombarded with and now they have to respond. And so let's say that they are fortunate and this is a topic they want to bring up and they have some prep time and they want to get themselves in the right headspace and body space to be able to communicate their needs and wants in a productive, professional kind of way. I would say start with getting very clear about what do you want, right? What do you want? So the process might start up here, but then we're going to bring it down to the body. So the person might say, let's just start with, maybe they want a raise. Okay, I want a raise. Okay, well, it is very easy for a topic like I want a raise to be filled with narrative and perspective around they don't acknowledge my worth. They don't see, right? You can go into it feeling very charged, and that doesn't work very well. That's not going to help you meet your needs. So first, identifying what is it that you need? What do you want? What's your goal in the conversation, to really clarify? And then begin to be curious, right? Be curious around how you feel around this topic. Okay. So this is where I would guide somebody to say, okay, what are you feeling in your body around when you think about having this conversation? And maybe they say, I feel, let's just say I feel anxious. Well, anxious, anxiety, right? That's a loaded word. And it really, truly is experienced by people in different ways. So I might say, tell me where you feel that in your body. I really help them zone in and focus in on the sensation of that emotion. Well, I feel it, I kind of feel it in my chest. Okay. Well, is it big? Is it small? Does it have like is it a type of movement to it? Like, really, truly, how does this feel in your body? And what happens is, as they're attuning to this emotion, they're no longer using these really unconscious skills to avoid it. Now they're leaning in. And what that does is that empowers people to tolerate discomfort in a whole new way. So when they walk into this conversation, they're able to attune to their emotions, right? So instead of becoming defensive from a place of stress or the perspective that you're not being heard or whatever it might be, they can take a breath, they can attune to that emotion. I'm feeling this in my body. And then the next step is, okay, how do we regulate your nervous system? So let's say that person's feeling anxious and they feel it kind of in their chest, and it's like a tight, maybe kind of like throbbing sensation, or maybe it feels like it's, growing out of them. And it's really amazing how people describe the emotions and sensations in their body when they begin to really lean into it. It's pretty cool. So the next step would be, okay, let's regulate our nervous system. A person who can regulate their nervous system, it's like a superpower, a lot. And sadly, a lot of people in our society don't know how to do that. People are out there reacting and they're not responding, because responding happens from a place of awareness, and reacting happens when I'm stressed, right? It's a survival response, a stress response. And so what I might do is take a breath right now with me. Everybody just breathe in through your nose, hold at the top for just a second, and then let it all the way go. The key is to exhale completely, slow and steady, but let that breath all the way go. And then I might ask them to do it one more time. And so now they're in their body just a little bit more. And I might say, feel your feet on the ground. Do you feel them? And they'll say, yeah. And I say, okay, take one more big breath. And this time, as you inhale, roll your shoulders up, hold at the top. And then as you exhale, roll those shoulders back and down. Make sure that you exhale all the way, letting that breath all the way go. Feel your feet on the ground. You're here. You're here and you're safe. And when I say you're safe, what's interesting is people logically know that they're safe, except for our nervous system doesn't know the difference between a heated conversation and a tiger walking in the room, right? Our nervous system reacts like it needs to react to keep us alive. So to feel threatened in a conversation, well, my nervous system is amped up as if I got to fight off a tiger, except for there's no tiger. It's my boss. And so I need to respond more appropriately, but I can only do that if I can feel my breath and if I can feel my feet on the ground. We hold micro tension in our body for decades, for lifetimes, we can hold tension in our body. So getting them to exaggerate this motion here, because a lot of people hold it in their neck and shoulders, a big inhale, and as they exhale, giving their shoulders permission to drop their guard, to relax, to feel at ease. Now they're operating with a more relaxed body. So they're going to present themselves as more confident, more relaxed. But also neurologically, when we're stressed, our full brain is not available to us. When we're stressed, we're operating from brainstem survival type places. When we can roll our shoulders back and catch our breath and slow our heart rate and feel our feet on the ground, well, now our frontal lobe and other parts of our brain that allow us to think creatively, those parts of our brain are now online. So we're going to be able to have a more intelligent conversation. We're going to be able to communicate our needs and wants. We're just going to be able to do that better. And so it holistically, just like mind and body, it really helps us all the way around.
Man, that is a good word. I can affirm everything that you're saying. I've always found myself in a room full of people at the front with a microphone in my hand. As far as I could think back, even when I was in like elementary school, and there was these moments to where, whenever I was really, really stressed, and it was usually whenever I was like, "Hey, Nick, come up on stage," I would just thrive. But it was like, "Hey, man, we need you to speak tomorrow at this parents conference at 3 p.m. Everybody's going to be there, and just painting a picture for you." I would get up there and I would I would almost go black, and I couldn't see, and I wouldn't know what to say next. And I received some coaching about breathing that helped me with that, and also a peppermint. I don't know if you heard the peppermint trick, but when you're trying to remember something, as you're reviewing something, put a peppermint in your mouth, and then right before you go on stage, put the peppermint in there, and it helps you. That smell and that resemblance of when you were learning that helps you remember. But another thing is I'm a sports fanatic. Zolan and everybody that knows me knows this. Every single time I watch an NBA Finals game, a Super Bowl, if we're talking about even the College World Series that I watched just the other night, all those dudes, when they're singing the national anthem, are lifting their shoulders up, taking deep breaths, and they're rolling them back. Every single one. Even LeBron James does it, even right now, which lets me know that he knows physically he has to clear it out so that he can think creatively and do what it is that he was created to do, in that moment. So just to affirm some of those really cool things that you said, both personally and something I've seen. So, man, I wish I could be at the symposium. Zolan, what's up with this, man? You think
I know. Hey, I can't be there either, man. Somebody got a board meeting like 2 days later. So
yeah.
No, this is really, really awesome stuff. And I don't want to take up too much of your time, so we'll move to close here pretty soon. But one more question I have is, it's really more of just a statement, but maybe you can affirm it. This seems really hard. For some people, I would imagine that this is hard. I mean, sure, so some people maybe easier than others, depending on their upbringing and, how much of this was ingrained in them, when they were younger. But for the vast majority, this seems like a really learned behavior.
The beautiful thing about learned behaviors is, so learned behaviors can be very negative, right? Like not communicating well. Yeah, we might have learned from observing, when we were children, observing the bigger people in our lives, how not to communicate, right? We might have not had the greatest example. But the beautiful thing about unlearned behavior or learned behaviors is that we can unlearn them. And that our brain has there's this thing called neuroplasticity in the neuroscience world. And what that means is our brain has this incredible capacity to rewire itself. It does take commitment. It takes practice. I tell people a lot of the time with things like breath work, they'll try it and sometimes they're like, it's not working, right? I'm like, well, think about the first time you tried to do a push-up. You probably fell on your face. You hadn't developed those muscles. Well, breath work and stress reduction and taking back control of your nervous system, it's truly a muscle. And so the more you practice it, truly the easier it gets. And so having that gentle compassion with yourself as you're learning a new behavior, like regulating your nervous system or having healthy conversations. This makes me think of when I do couples work sometimes, and they're trying to have healthy conversations and they've just never done it before. And they didn't have parents that modeled it. And so this is brand new for them. I say, be gentle with yourself and be gentle with each other, because yes, trying something new, anytime we try anything new, if we expect to go in and hit a home run, that's just not realistic. So to have the humility to just do it a little messy, but to do it, to have the courage to show up and try something new that could improve your life and the lives of those around you. It takes practice, but man, it is so worth it. And the quality of life that I see people gain from these, because they're simple skills, right? They're not complex. I'm not asking people to do like trigonometry or something. Like, they are simple tools and skills, and things like breath work. Your breath is free and you take it with you everywhere you go. You might as well learn to utilize it. So they're simple skills, but they do take practice. They do take, but I can't think of anything that's more worth it.
Yeah, very well said. Thank you for that. I just wanted to call that out because I think some people out there might be thinking, well, this sounds really awesome, but I don't know where to start. So,
right. Well, I hope
yeah.
that symposium, it is my intention and desire to really show people, right, in the crowd. We're going to do some gentle breath work, and it is my absolute joy to teach people these things who have never done it before. That's actually I guess it's become my specialty. Because you don't have to be some Buddhist monk to meditate or to find mindfulness. It really is a tool that should be available and accessible to everybody. And so we'll do things at the symposium to really show people this is accessible to you, and it is not impossible. And this is something you can practice every day, and you'll see for yourself how quickly it becomes more of a habit. And yeah, you get to experience the benefits of living a reduced stress kind of life.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a really good stopping point. I do appreciate all the insight and information that you've given to us and our audience today. Nick, am I missing anything, man? Did you have any final questions or thoughts that you wanted to run by Sarah?
No, I'll tell you what, after meeting you though, Sarah, I'm very grateful that you're going to be a part of this for our young professionals, our future, right? The future of not only our association, but our industry as a whole. And I think it's really cool. A couple of our core values at CFESA is to educate and to train. That's kind of why we exist. But another one is to be people's advocate, to put things in front of them that are good for them. And I'm hopeful that my prayer will be that just one life will be changed and made a little bit better, and they avoid some burnout. But if anything, it just feels like I wouldn't even say knowledge. It feels like wisdom. So I mean, I'm excited about this, and there may even be a path where we have you at a national conference one day. I don't know. Just keep it up in mind.
Sounds great.
I can think of some old professionals that need it too, as well. Nick being one,
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sarah and Nick. Thank you guys for another great episode. Make sure to tune in next month. You never know who we're going to have on next.
See you, Zolan. See you, Sarah.
See you guys.